The Lost City of Atlantis. A paranormal nightmare. I still remember the day we set out on that ill-fated expedition to explore the depths of the ocean. It was meant to be a journey of discovery, a chance to uncover the secrets of the ancient world. But nothing could have prepared us for what lay ahead. Our team consisted of seasoned explorers and scientists, each with their own expertise and motivations. There was Dr. Maria Rodriguez, our team leader and expert in marine archaeology; Jack, a young and ambitious journalist looking for the scoop of a lifetime; Sarah, a talented photographer documenting our journey; and myself, an engineer specializing in underwater equipment. We spent months preparing for the expedition, poring over maps and research papers, studying the theories of ancient civilizations. Our destination was the fabled lost city of Atlantis, hidden beneath the waves for millennia. Theories abounded about its grandeur and beauty, but we knew little about its true nature. As we set off on our journey, the excitement was palpable. We were a team of seasoned professionals, each with their own reasons for being there. But as we delved deeper into the unknown, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching us from the depths. The ocean is a vast and mysterious place, full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. We were about to embark on an adventure that would change our lives forever, but little did we know what horrors lay ahead. As we descended into the dark, icy waters, our submersible creaked and groaned beneath us. The pressure was immense, and the silence was almost deafening. Our lights cast an eerie glow on the desolate seafloor, illuminating nothing but the endless expanse of blackness. It was as if we were being swallowed by the very ocean itself. We had been searching for hours, our sonar and radar scanning the seafloor for any sign of the lost city. And then suddenly it appeared on our screens like a ghostly apparition, a massive structure rising from the darkness, its edges etched against the moonlit sky. We exchanged excited whispers, our hearts racing with anticipation. This was it, the moment we had been waiting for. We guided our submersible towards the structure, careful not to get too close. As we approached, I could see that it was unlike anything I had ever seen before, a sprawling metropolis of towering spires and grand arches, covered in vines and moss. It was as if the city had been swallowed by the sea, leaving behind only remnants of its former glory. We began to explore the city, marveling at the ancient architecture and the eerie silence that surrounded us. But as we delved deeper into the ruins, I started to feel a creeping sense of unease. It was as if we were being watched, our every move tracked by unseen eyes. I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but the feeling persisted. I kept my thoughts to myself, not wanting to alarm the others. But as we explored further, I began to notice strange symbols etched into the walls, cryptic messages that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. As we ventured deeper into the city, our excitement turned to wonder at the sheer scale of the structures around us. Towering pillars supported vaulted ceilings, and intricate carvings adorned the walls, depicting scenes of daily life in a civilization long gone. The air was thick with the scent of salt water and decay, a morbid perfume that clung to our skin like a damp shroud. We wandered through the streets, our footsteps echoing off the buildings. Every step revealed a new marvel, a grand temple dedicated to an unknown deity, a marketplace filled with ancient artifacts, or a sprawling palace with halls lined in glittering mosaic tiles. The more we explored, the more I felt a growing sense of disorientation. The city seemed to shift and twist around us, like a living, breathing entity that refused to be mapped. We stumbled upon a vast central square, its edges lined with towering statues of figures I couldn't identify. In the center of the square stood an enormous statue of a woman, her face serene, yet somehow wrong. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I gazed upon the statue's face. Her eyes seemed to stare right through me, piercing the very soul. I turned away, but my gaze kept drifting back, drawn by some macabre fascination. The others seemed oblivious to her unsettling presence, too caught up in their own explorations to notice. But I knew what I had seen, and it sent a chill coursing through my veins. As we continued to explore the city, I began to experience strange and unsettling encounters. It started with small things, a door creaking open by itself, a faint whisper in my ear when no one was around. At first, I wrote it off as the product of too much time spent in the submersible, but soon the occurrences grew more frequent and more intense. I would see shadowy figures darting around the edges of my vision, only to vanish when I turned to look. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, making my skin crawl and my teeth ache. It was as if the city itself was alive, watching me, waiting for me to make a wrong move. I tried to share my experiences with the others, but they just laughed it off, telling me I was spooked from too much time in the dark. But I knew what I saw, and I knew it wasn't just my imagination playing tricks on me. One night, as we camped on the outskirts of the city, I woke up to find Sarah missing. Our alarms had been set to go off if she didn't return after a certain amount of time, but they hadn't sounded. I frantically searched the submersible, but there was no sign of her. It wasn't until we reviewed the footage from our cameras that we saw her standing in front of the statue of the woman, staring at it with an expression of pure horror on her face. I tried to tell the others what had happened, but they just told me I must have misinterpreted the footage. They said Sarah was fine, and that she had probably just gone for a walk. But I knew what I saw, and I knew that something was terribly wrong. As we delved deeper into the heart of the city, I began to uncover a dark and sinister history. Ancient texts etched into the walls told tales of human sacrifices, of rituals performed in the dead of night to appease some ancient deity. The air was thick with an eerie energy, as if the very fabric of reality had been torn apart by some long-forgotten cataclysm. We stumbled upon a massive temple dedicated to the worship of a goddess known only as the Devourer. Her face was carved into the walls, her eyes blazing with an otherworldly fury. I could feel her presence, like a cold wind blowing through my very soul. I found ancient artifacts that seemed to hold secrets and tales of unspeakable horrors. A golden amulet adorned with symbols of human suffering, a set of ritual knives etched with strange markings that seemed to shift and writhe in the light. The more we explored, the more I realized that this city was not just a relic of an ancient civilization. It was a gateway to some dark and malevolent force. Something had been awakened by our presence, something that threatened to consume us all. I tried to warn the others, but they seemed oblivious to the danger. They were too caught up in their own discoveries, too eager to uncover the secrets of the city. I knew that we had to leave, to escape while we still could. But as I turned to make my way back to the submersible, I saw something that made my blood run cold. As the days passed, our behavior became increasingly erratic. The others seemed to be losing their grip on reality, and I was no exception. We would find ourselves arguing over trivial things, or laughing hysterically at nothing. The city itself seemed to be driving us mad, its dark energy seeping into every pore of my being. I tried to keep a record of our progress, but the entries became increasingly disjointed and surreal. We would find strange symbols etched into the walls, seemingly written in blood. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and I could feel it watching me, waiting for me to crack. I started to experience strange visions, flashes of images that seemed to hold no meaning. I saw cities burning, oceans boiling and skies filled with a sickly yellow haze. The others were seeing things too, but they were more coherent than mine. They would talk about the devourer in hushed tones, as if it was some ancient deity waiting to be summoned. I knew that we had to escape, but every time I turned to leave, I felt an overwhelming sense of paralysis. It was as if the city had me in its grasp, refusing to let me go. And then, one night, I saw Sarah again. She was standing in front of the statue, her eyes black as coal and a twisted grin spreading across her face. "Come and join us," she whispered, her voice like a rusty gate. "Let's dance with the devourer." As I watched Sarah, my mind reeled in horror. She was no longer the person I had known and trusted. Her eyes seemed to be sucking me in, drawing me into some dark and twisted world. I tried to step back, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The others began to stir, their own eyes taking on a strange, glazed quality. They started to move towards Sarah, as if drawn by some unseen force. I knew then that we were all in grave danger. I tried to call out to them, to snap them out of their trance-like state, but my voice was drowned out by the sound of whispering. The words were indistinguishable, but the tone was unmistakable, a cold, mirthless laughter that seemed to be coming from all around us. Suddenly, the lights on our submersible flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. I was left alone with my thoughts, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. And then I heard it, a low, thrumming noise that seemed to be coming from beneath our feet. It was the sound of something moving, something ancient and evil stirring from its slumber. I knew then that we were doomed. The city was not just a place. It was a portal to another dimension, one that was home to unspeakable horrors beyond human comprehension. As I waited for the inevitable, I couldn't help but wonder what other terrors lay in store for us. Would we be consumed by the very darkness we had sought out? Or would we find a way to escape the clutches of the devourer? The waiting was agonizing, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. I waited for what felt like an eternity for anything to happen. And when I finally did stir, the others were gone, vanished into the depths of the city. I was alone, left to face whatever horrors lay ahead. But as I turned to make my way back to the submersible, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure, standing just beyond the edge of sight, watching me. I tried to scream, but my voice was trapped in my throat. The figure didn't move, didn't blink. It simply watched me, its presence suffocating me with an unseen weight. And then everything went black. I woke up to find myself in a world that was not my own. The city had changed, its buildings twisted and distorted like a funhouse mirror reflection of reality. I stumbled through the streets, desperate to find some semblance of sanity, but every door I opened led only to more confusion and terror. The others were gone, vanished into the depths of the city like ghosts. I was left alone, forced to confront the horrors that lurked in every shadow. I saw things that could not be explained, creatures that defied logic and reason, their twisted bodies writhing like living darkness. I heard whispers in my ear, tempting me with forbidden knowledge and ancient secrets. My mind was unraveling, thread by thread, as the city's madness seeped into my very being. I became lost in a labyrinth of reflections, forever chasing the elusive goal of escape. And then I saw her again, Sarah, the girl who had driven me mad with her haunting smile and her eyes that burned with an otherworldly fire. She was standing in front of the statue, beckoning me towards the depths of madness. I tried to resist, but it was too late. The city had me in its grasp, and I was doomed to descend into the abyss of my own sanity. The world went black, and when I came back, everything was different. The city was new, its buildings rebuilt like a phoenix from the ashes, but I knew that I would never be the same again. The madness had taken hold, and I was forever changed. As the city's madness reached its peak, I felt the sky above me begin to weep. At first, it was just a faint patter, like the gentle touch of a lover's fingers on my skin. But soon, the rain grew heavier, until it was coming down in sheets that blinded and deafened me. The sound was like 1,000 drums beating in my ears, a primal rhythm that seemed to match the pounding of my own heart. I stumbled through the streets, trying to find shelter from the deluge, but there was nowhere to hide. The city's buildings seemed to be melting around me, their walls flowing like liquid as the rain poured down. I felt myself becoming one with the storm, my skin prickling with goose flesh as the droplets seeped into my bones. And then I saw her again, Sarah, standing in front of the statue, her eyes blazing with an inner fire that seemed to be burning brighter with every passing moment. She reached out a hand towards me, and I felt myself being drawn to her like a ship to a magnet. The rain grew louder until it was almost deafening, and I felt my own voice rising up in response. "Come," she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. "Let the storm wash away your doubts and fears." And with that, I stepped forward into the heart of the maelstrom. The world around me dissolved into chaos, and I was consumed by the sheer force of the rain. As I fell deeper into the heart of the storm, I felt a presence watching me from just beyond the edge of perception. It was as if an unseen eye was trained on me, its gaze piercing the veil of reality and boring into my very soul. I tried to look away, but my gaze kept drifting back to Sarah, who stood frozen in front of the statue. Her eyes seemed to be locked onto mine, their intensity making my own skin prickle with unease. I felt a creeping sense of dread as I realized that we were no longer alone. There was something else out there, something that didn't want us to leave. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath misting in front of me. The rain pounded against the pavement like 1,000 tiny drums, creating a cacophony of sound that seemed to reverberate deep within my chest. I knew then that I had to get out of there, but my legs felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. It was as if some unseen force was holding me fast, refusing to let me move. Sarah, too, seemed frozen in place, her eyes never leaving mine. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The rain stopped, the wind died down, and an oppressive stillness fell over the city like a shroud. I looked around, but there was nothing to see. No one was there. No sound came from anywhere. It was as if we were completely alone, surrounded by an unseen presence that watched us with cold, calculating eyes. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the edge of perception. Watching me, watching Sarah. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the edge of perception, watching me, watching Sarah. It was tall and imposing, its features indistinct and shifting like a living shadow. I felt a jolt of fear as our eyes met, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. The world around us melted away, leaving only the two of us trapped in a vast, empty space. The figure didn't move or speak, but its presence was suffocating, weighing me down with an unseen force. I tried to look away, but my gaze kept drifting back to it, like a moth to a flame. I knew then that we were trapped, caught in some kind of supernatural snare from which there was no escape. The city seemed to be shifting and twisting around us, its streets disappearing and reappearing like a maze. I felt a growing sense of desperation as I realized that we were lost forever, adrift in a world that had become a living nightmare. Sarah's eyes met mine, and for a moment, we shared a look of sheer terror. We knew then that we were at the mercy of this unseen force, forced to play out some twisted game from which there was no escape. The figure began to move towards us, its pace slow and deliberate. I felt my heart racing with fear as it drew closer, its presence filling me with an unspeakable dread. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went black. We woke up to find ourselves back in our own beds, the entire experience feeling like a distant dream. It was as if we had been living in a nightmare from which we couldn't wake up. But as I looked around my room, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A photograph on my nightstand, taken just before everything went wrong. A photograph of Sarah and me standing together in front of the statue. And then I saw it. A message scrawled across the back of the photo, in handwriting that looked eerily like my own. "You will never be free," it read. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that we were trapped in some kind of time loop, reliving the same day over and over again. And then it clicked into place. The figure, the statue, the rain, it was all just a part of some twisted game designed to keep us trapped forever. I looked around my room again, this time with a sense of determination. I knew that I had to find a way out no matter what it took. And then I saw it. A small key hidden in the drawer of my nightstand. It was old and rusted, but it felt heavy in my hand. "This is it," I whispered to myself. "This is our chance to escape." I turned the key over in my hand, feeling a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in hours. And then, with a deep breath, I opened the door and stepped out into the unknown. The city was quiet and still, the sun shining down on us like a benevolent deity. We walked through the streets, hand in hand, feeling a sense of freedom that we hadn't felt in years. "We made it," I whispered to Sarah, my voice barely audible over the sound of my own heartbeat. "We're free," she replied, her eyes shining with tears. "We'll never be trapped again."